and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game.
Preferable.
That was mine, actually.
Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
I'm Ari.
I'm Jim Bob.
No, you're not.
And I'm Josh.
Charlie, in case you don't know that by now.
I think most people do, especially if they've been following along with our channel for
Thank you, by the way.
quite some time.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you.
But we are going to be going over a play that we had our minds on for quite some time.
Dun 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 dun!
I read it in high school. Ari read it in high school.
I read it in high school.
Yeah, and I'm pretty
I
sure.
read it this week.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We're going over The Crucible by Arthur Miller, which is quite a thought-provoking play, whether it is something you enjoy or do not enjoy. So let's begin. Let's start with the protagonist in this work, or the person that is seen as being the
Daniel
protagonist.
Day-Lewis.
How do you see John Proctor? Who wants to take this one?
I'll take it. I think he's okay. He's a decent guy. You know, I mean, he's got his flaws, and he's not perfect at all, and he's made his mistakes. But I think that ultimately, he's just trying to be true to himself, and you know, growing up in the puritanical system that they were in. He's, you know, he wasn't perfect.
I can't agree more. I know that. I also jotted down that he has the ability to live his life and let others live their lives. The fact that
Live and let live.
Yeah, he doesn't want to interfere with what other people are doing.
Yeah.
He just wants to
He wants
take
to
care of his
lead his
family.
own life.
He wants to care for his family, though he will engage in extramarital affairs. He's on his third marriage, and he just wants to do his complete the work that he needs to complete. He's backed out of church, but Reverend Harris is a crook, I would say.
Yeah.
He's like one of those guys who just wants to get on with what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to, in basic, so, you know, as I see John Proctor, I see him as a good man. Yes, made mistakes. That doesn't, but we make mistakes. Even people that lived centuries before us, and of course, you know, this looks like it takes back in Puritan time, obviously. And you know, with the Puritan mindset, it's you have to work. There's no, even if you're sick and you got one arm tied behind your back because you know you got to work. You know, you have to. And then it's always when you go to church on Sunday, you're all going to hell, and that's basically the mindset. You know,
Right.
you know, give me money,
to...
and you're not going to hell. You'll probably get a timeshare in purgatory. And that's basically, you know.
And that's what he's kind of rebelling against by not going to church as often.
Yeah, and it's personally, you know, I'm at mass every week, but you know, if I had a pastor, or you know, let's say in this case, if I was John Proctor, I wouldn't want to be hearing complete eternal damnation, because aren't you going to church to be saved, not the opposite? So that's what drives a lot of people away from the church.
Mm-hmm. And
a few other things.
And in many ways, it's still relevant today. Yeah. Maybe not as many accusations regarding witchcraft.
Yeah, the thing with Proctor is he kept to himself. He didn't point out stuff that happened with other people.
Yeah. Well, he kind of does, though. I mean, the thing about him is that you know he's honest almost to a fault, right? Where if something comes up, he's not going to bite his tongue in the least, and he's going to possibly offend people.
Yeah,
and he'll speak his mind, absolutely.
Even when it's potentially extremely dangerous for him to do so, he still will make that remark that says, "This is how it is. You're responsible for it, and and your reaction to that is your problem."
But at the same time, he only admitted that he himself was the devil's man. Or wizard.
Yeah.
But he would not throw any other names to the judges.
That's what I was trying to
because
explain.
Didn't he already admit that, you know, had he not admitted, well then, take two. Did he admit that he...
yes, he did go on to admit.
That's honesty right there. I mean, of course you did violate your marriage, and you know, but having that honesty to go in front of the judge and say, Your Honor, I have done this to my wife, and of course, honey, I'm sorry. I know I'm sorry does not do anything. I know those are just words.
It's kind of like with Clinton, where I remember that.
Well,
no, I'm not being on the political side.
No, I know.
I'm saying is it because I remember because of the way things were, Bill had all the affairs and Hillary still forgave him for it.
Yeah. And you know what?
I'm not going to say anything right now. I think there's so much more.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying that's the fact. That's what happened.
Yeah. And
I think there were reasons, but
yeah. Whether there were reasons or not is irrelevant. I mean, that's what happened.
Exactly.
But what are you saying?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Me. Who else? The annoying guy in the red shirt. Basically, let's you know what I would put if I was Proctor's wife, which I know this is going against the grain here, but I would have forgiven him. I would have said, you know what, I'm a screw up too. I make mistakes, and he already admitted I'm already going to hell. So, I mean, I'm trying to clean this. Wipe the slate clean here and make everything.
You're just trying to get to a less level of hell.
No, he's trying to be a good Puritan Christian. Or, he's trying to say, look, even though I did what I did was wrong, I'm not proud of it. I'm still going to hell. And with the Puritan mindset, that was one of the worst things you could have ever done.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that he's a true believer.
I know, but I'm just saying at that time,
I think he went with what society was bringing into him rather than believing in himself.
Yeah, and I think, in the end, when he decides not to name names, it's, to help
others,
right?
Because
he can see that.
Yeah, and I think those others are innocent. Because
sure.
Oh, absolutely.
He's like the absolute opposite of Joe McCarthy.
Yes.
But, pretty much, or he granted, Joe McCarthy, Senator Joe McCarthy was the one that inspired the text at hand, and his accusations are reflected upon both the religious, the legal, and the potential authorities.
Plus, there's no sound
and the
proof.
accusers.
Yeah, accusers.
No sound proof. If you have sound proof, then you have a case. If you have just mere accusations, nothing written down, nothing seen on, then it's
just funny what is required after the confession itself.
Exactly.
The requirements are there's a written confession that's hanged on the doors of the church.
Exactly. And right there, that's...
You're required to accuse others, which goes to show you that people are encouraged to hold grudges and judge others. That's something we are supposed to discourage.
Exactly.
It's starting to happen these days again.
I know.
Of course.
It's always happening. I see it.
It's definitely something that we're going to explore. Was there anything that we needed to bring about a Proctor before we talk about everybody else?
First,
I think I've gotten everything about Proctor I wanted to say.
Yeah. And same here. Good man.
Except Daniel Day-Lewis was really good in the role. I think because he's a method actor, it made it a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie. I'm curious to watch it now. But I like the character. I mean, I guess that's really...
The movie was okay. But between... just saying for people who are watching right now, I'm actually not a huge fan of this play or the book. But, I mean, it's an interesting concept. I think that Daniel Day-Lewis, there's a movie that came out for the Crucible, which is a little bit different from the play. And Daniel Day-Lewis, actually, when he was playing the part of John Proctor, he didn't take a shower or bath for an entire month.
Yeah. And some actors will do that,
It's called method acting.
Exactly.
But,
I wonder how his co-stars felt about it.
No.
Okay, turn on that. Yeah, all right, put the gas masks on, and 3, 2, 1, go.
I do not care for the play too much, but it's interesting, so I decided to be on the panel.
The only inaccurate thing is the fact that Proctor was in his 60s during these events, and he was also portrayed as being a man in his 60s.
If he's in his 60s, then him saying, "Oh, I'm going to hell, it doesn't matter," makes even more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. And but Daniel Day-Lewis,
he was in his 40s.
He was younger, and he was portrayed as being younger.
As we went over on the phone, it was the same thing with Abigail. She was supposed to be like 11 or 12, and she turned out to be like 17.
In the written play, The Crucible, she was also bumped up, probably because they didn't want to make Proctor look like he was a pedophile, but instead, he was just engaging in an affair with a mistress. But with regard to Daniel Day-Lewis, he looked a bit more like Proctor after he was accused and was in the when he was locked up and acquired the facial hair, and he began to really look as if he didn't bathe for several days. Mm-hmm. But
well, why don't we talk about Abigail, if that's the next thing on the list?
The next thing has to do with who do you believe is the most crucial character to the text and body.
Okay.
Which
I had actually say that I could argue that it's Abigail Williams, actually.
Abigail, I think, is the key antagonist.
I think she's the setup because everything revolves around her.
Yeah.
I think Proctor just gets involved.
Reverend Paris's niece, the judges kowtow to her. And she has that desire, the fact that people engage. She is the central. She's pretty much.
She's stirring the pot. Is that a good? That's
the problem I have with Abigail, though, and this is with a lot of the play, is that I feel that it's so real that it's fake. Mm-hmm. Even though these kinds of things happen, and even though these people are real, it just seems fake. I can't. It's hard to describe, but it's like it's almost as if all the stuff that happened in this play was so pinpoint accurate, and that everything in the play just didn't feel like it actually happened.
In a way, it did happen. The fact that it's nonfiction, but
it's base. It's base, but even it just feels like the way it was written, not necessarily the events, but the way it was written made it feel.
You mean like in play format?
It might be that, I don't know.
Because I mean, with how
and the characters were a bit too specific and too I guess the word is they really had a lot to describe them, and it felt like it was a little too much.
With regard to Abigail, she's Reverend Paris's niece, so she feels entitled. She's a spoiled brat.
We talked about this.
I would never.
Josh and I admit how we hate Abigail Williams in this story.
And then when she goes,
she just thinks she's right about everything, and
she's the know-it-all.
Then she goes to Boston, becomes a prostitute, and dies from STDs
at age 19.
Really?
I would say roughly around that age. Yes.
I don't remember reading that.
STD.
I know.
The fact that she was a prostitute is in there, or she became a prostitute.
Yeah, in there.
But I had to look up biographical research.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
But it definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
But,
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an unfortunate incident happened up there in Massachusetts.
You want to go next, Charlie?
What do you got to say about Abigail?
Who do you think is the most crucial character?
Yeah. I mean, for me, this might be a little bit of a radical turn here. I'm going to go with Danforth.
That's exactly who I have.
Aww.
But now, I'll be interested to hear why.
Danforth, I think he was the judge, if I'm not mistaken.
He was a deputy governor, so he was the head judge.
Yeah, so basically, he's God with a lowercase g in this play. That's what I think. And he was just so, the way he came off, intelligent, educated, well-educated, And back then, there was not really that much for an opportunity for, I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but, he was, above everybody. And obviously not just because of his...
To the legal degree.
Well, yeah, I'm saying that. But, the way he would say, and I'm loosely quoting, I have the power to do this to you and this to... Okay, that's great if you're trying to scale it, what out of somebody, which in this case he is trying to do, but
not the way he was doing it.
Yeah, it's,
I get why you say he's important because he makes like the most important.
Yeah,
decisions.
and also being a judge, even if you're a judge way back then, or if you're Judge Judy to this present day, which is a great show when I used to watch it, they have, and I mean a lot of it's scripted. I'm not gonna lie, sorry, but as a judge in the court, and if you have to, like 12 Angry Men, the play 12 Angry Men.
Great play, great movie.
Exactly, that judge has to go by what that jury said, or in some cases there is no jury, or you have to say to yourself, I'm making this decision, which is either going to say this person is going to walk free, even though I still can't say he did it or didn't do it, and I'm just saying he, just not take gender out of it, that judge has to be as accurate and has to have the most, what was I going to say? If there's smoke coming out of my ears, you can really tell if you're going to have to answer to your maker. As when you if you're that judge and you're that judge, let's say you bang that hammer like guilty, 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 guilty.
You're like Officer Shrift in the Phantom Toll.
Yeah, judges have to uphold the law, and it has to be a one-size-fits-all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when they go to meet their maker, it's like, well, you're guilty because you sent like 30,000 people to jail or stocks.
So Danforth makes a lot of important decisions. Do I think he's the most important character in the book? Absolutely not.
Well,
I agree with Charlie because I feel...
And we're still friends. We all agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I feel that Danforth is the driving force to the trials that are going on.
He's very powerful.
Because I feel that he is set in his ways regarding upholding the law.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
no leniency.
he seems to be willing to listen. He'll listen to what they have to say. On the other hand, you have Judge Hawthorne.
Oh my God, I don't even want to talk about Hawthorne.
Hawthorne, I would say, is worse because he will... If anybody that comes into the room accused as a witch, they're a witch. And the only thing he's looking for is a confession. He's completely by the book.
He knows if someone walks into that room that it's not... He's not going to change his mind.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
He's dead set. Like saying, if that Coke can... is absolutely a Coke can. There's no other opinion that could be anything else.
That's pretty much
He's very fact-based.
The only time he shows emotion in the whole play is when Proctor makes the decision that he's going to confess.
Yeah.
And that's before they tell Proctor about the...
so I'll go back to the question.
required.
Do I think that Hawthorne is the most important character in this book? Absolutely not. I actually think the judges in some weird, twisted way are kind of like puppets.
To some extent, but according to Arthur Miller himself, he sees Danforth as the main antagonist because he feels that Danforth is doing this for his image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But with regard
but he's like only doing him and Hawthorne are just doing what they're doing
their job.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, with characters like Abigail and John Proctor, it's much more complex.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the more complex characters are the ones that are more important to the story. That's just my opinion.
Abigail's the one that's, and then, but it all comes down to the fact that there are three kinds of driving forces. There's the religious authority in Reverend Paris and Hale, but Paris is much more
of a twit, shall we say?
Putting it nicely. I guess
I'm sugarcoating. He's a twit.
The religious authority, the legal authority, and then the messengers of authority, which are the teenage girls that are led by Abigail.
Yeah.
And then you have Mary Warren, who is probably probably has the softest backbone out of everybody.
And she gets it in the neck.
She had an opportunity to make a statement, but she cowers to Abigail.
But the messengers are, I think, out of the three, even though that they think, they believe, like the way that they kind of come across, they believe they have the most authority, they don't. And that's kind of like the stuck-up personality that Abigail has.
Oh, yeah. And
they think they are above everything, above board and all that. So,
You mean the people or themselves?
Themselves.
Okay, because the people do too, right? I mean, they're described as the people are following you around
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
She's a saint.
Although that's true. Also, I was actually referring to themselves, but that's true as well.
Yeah.
Who do you find, Larry, as being the most crucial?
The most crucial? I don't know. I guess just to give a different answer, I'll go with Hale. Because he's kind of the catalyst, right? He's the guy that shows up in the beginning and he's got his volumes and volumes and volumes of books.
Yeah.
Suggesting, religious authority as well as an authority of science or education, of learning.
And
Education.
Yeah, and then within minutes, he's basically convinced that there's witches afoot, and that these girls are telling the truth. And then the actions that happen from that point on, happen with the weight of his opinion, which is a very it's got a lot of weight.
That's a good question. If he hadn't said anything about it, do you think it would still happen? Or would have just someone else had come up with it, or would have?
It was already taking place.
Yeah.
The girls were engaged in the they were going out in the woods and
dancing naked. Oh my god!
And dancing to attract the spirits, and then they ended up they felt that there was that it wasn't their fault and that there needed to be a reason to that.
Well, and not only that, but they weren't really trying to pull up the devil, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
hear Tibulu, or is that her name? Tibulu? Titubla, I'm sorry. At the end, when she's talking about what the devil means in Haiti, it's got nothing to do with the way that we envision it. He's just another god. He's just another, like a merry prankster kind of god, the way she's describing him. It's not the embodiment of evil. So that's what she was going for, right? Because the imagery is probably similar, which is probably how the girls came to find out about him. And she's like, I'll show you.
I'd say this.
I think it was entirely innocent.
This period of time where this book takes place is when everyone really thought that they could, bring up, like, not just like the devil, but entities like that, and with the witchcraft and stuff. I don't really think there is a period of time that shows it stronger than this. What century is this again, Josh?
This is
17th
17th, late 1690s, or during the 1690s.
So, I mean, you really don't get it much before, and you don't really get it much after. So.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. What was I saying about Hale? Oh, yeah. I stand by it, because I think Hale really got it rolling, right? If you remember the beginning, Paris is like, we're not saying it's witchcraft. The only reason we're sending for Hale is to prove that it's not. And then Hale goes there, and he says, oh, it is. And then
just confirming their suspicions.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Do we want to move on to the next question?
Yeah.
And you had that's quite an interesting point that really makes me think. So, which I think that's what these discussions are supposed to do.
Yeah.
No, that's all I got.
Alrighty. Next question. The Crucible was inspired by the McCarthyism that was taking place when this play was written. Do you feel it was the right decision to compare the Salem Witch Trials to McCarthyism?
Well, I already did it, so yes.
And, with the Salem Witch Trials, you have basically, okay, all of that aside, when you have a court proceeding, I'm just talking at the court as a court proceeding right now. If you want to make a case on somebody or a party, you need to have that proof of that how are you going to have proof that they're with the devil? I mean, even in the court, weren't those girls acting? Weren't they just playing? You gotta have solid proof that person or that party is, or in this case, that entity. Oh, what? No, I'm kidding. That's
actually happening.
Yeah, you can't just go on false accusations like, oh, he stole my French fries. 10 years in the slammer.
And we're based on assumptions.
That's kind of
too.
like there's a Jewish proverb, I think not proverb, but like a kind of like a lesson, it's called. And what it is that there's a man that goes to a butcher, and he is found at the butcher, and there's like 5 or 6 people on the ground dead and bleeding, and he's holding the knife, but nobody saw him do it. So how can you say that he actually killed all 5 or 6 of them if there's no proof?
You can't. And back then there was no, okay, let's take a very small blood sample like that. Okay, well, good. We're going to put the dust and
Innocent until proven guilty, as you know.
Exactly, yeah.
Pretty much the case.
Yeah,
You know?
but this is a theocracy that we're looking at here. This isn't even the United States yet. So it's just it's the church and the government are pretty much the same thing.
And of course you have that church and state are cut in half. So
Some of the phenomena though seems possible, like where you can see where it might make you think that something was going on, right? Like when they talk about I guess Mary, when she faints and then they touch her and she's cold to the touch. How do you explain that?
you could, and in that case, you can also say, well, okay, it's either a really, really strong coincidence or she's just under that pressure. That pressure, you put the heat on somebody, and maybe she did, maybe she didn't. Let's go on the case that she is innocent. You're putting all that pressure on somebody who's so fragile, and wasn't she?
And you want her to respond to certain.
Why don't you just a physical exam?
Exactly. Is she not carrying, a baby?
That was Elizabeth,
Colonel Parker's wife. My mistake, but still, either way,
She was the most weak-willed of the bunch.
And and you got to. What is this? What time of year is this happening? Is this in the middle of the winter? Is this even though in the summer hot? Because back then there's no AC, and I'm not talking about Atlantic City. I'm talking air conditioning, heat. We don't have those. Didn't have those luxuries.
No.
It could have flat out. If I was a judge and I saw that, I would have. First of all, I would have gotten up my high. You know what? And I would have done the examination myself. But even before I even allowed anyone in my courtroom, now I'm taking the place of the judge. If I allowed anyone in my courtroom, no matter what,
they have to leave.
I would say to the attorneys, give me the proof I want on my desk in 2 days, 2 weeks. You got as long as you got. You don't come up with anything. I mean,
That's kind of why they. I remember a few weeks ago I had to go to traffic court. And the people who had lawyers went first because they already had everything ready, and including the proof and stuff.
Exactly.
And then the ones who didn't have the proof, they would sift through it as they go.
And final thoughts?
I like food.
Well, my friend told me once about the book. Whether it's historically / linguistically correct, I do not know. Maybe if someone in the comments can help me verify this or not.
Subscribe, and enjoy.
Yeah. So, my friend once told me that Salem, the word Salem, sounds like another Arabic word called salam.
Yeah. Oh.
And salam is the same way to say shalom in Hebrew, which can mean one of 3 things, but I think he says that it meant peace, that the one version he's talking about, and he thinks that Salem was named after peace, and when all this was going on, like they were actually considering changing the name of the city. I don't know if this is true or not, but it could be, it might not be, I don't know. But this play is not one of my favorite plays. It's like I said, it feels like it may have happened, but it just feels like it's too pinpoint accurate, too specific. Many details are just mulled over for a long time. Yeah. It just feels like it's a bit fake. And I like the characters. The characters are very well thought out, and I mean, I don't like some of the characters. Like Abigail's a word that I can't say right now, and some of the judges are a bit straightforward and they don't care about anybody else.
Pretentious.
I think if I gave this play / book a rating out of 5, I'd give it probably a 1.5 or a 2. I'm just not. I think it's
that low.
I think it's an overrated work. I think a lot of people tend to like it. I'm just not a big fan of it. So that's my final thoughts.
Larry, what would you give it?
What would I give it? Probably 4. I like this one. I like it. I was riveted, especially Act 2 is probably my favorite.
Okay.
At the end of Act 3, I was kind kind of know what's happening.
I feel that Act 3 wasn't very strong. That's another reason why. I think it started off strong and then got weaker as it went along.
Yeah, that was my finding too. But yeah, it's like, okay, so we know that this guy wrote this book as a signpost, right, against the Red Scare and all that. Okay, so he changed some things, right? He made Abigail older. You know, he tried to draw the lines between right and wrong a little bit thicker, so that it would be hopefully more obvious to the people going through the times that they were going through. And maybe in doing so, you think maybe that's why it might have lost you a little bit, because
possibly. Although I didn't really know about the history before.
No, but just the fact that it's kind of contrived, maybe.
That's possible.
I would say that argument is definitely valid.
Okay.
I think part of it, I mean, not as much anymore because I'm older now, but part of it was because I read it in high school, and when you read it, when you're being forced to read it, it's not as fun as if you read it, without any kind of outside force telling you to. So the books I enjoy the most are books I pick up and read, instead of saying, you got to read page 150.
Okay.
That also might be a bit why, but I honestly just, when I read it the second time, I confirmed my suspicions. What about you, Charles?
I'm gonna give it a solid 3. That's just, I thought it was, a little hard to follow along because, Abigail enters stage right. This, that. Okay, all right, great. We can do without that. I think if it was in a book.
I think there's a version without that stuff.
Okay, so yeah, then if that's the case, I would have given it a 4. But right now, it's got a 3. False accusations, frivolous stuff like that. Get it out of my courtroom.
It's interesting, Charlie, that you mentioned all that stuff, right? All that stuff that's not a play, that's in the play. Like all those paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff. Like, was this thing meant to be seen as a play, or is it meant to be read, do you think?
I think this is more of something that's meant to be read. It can be acted out, but I think there are things that are...
I've never actually seen it as a play. When I mean seen it, I don't mean on stage. I mean like in anywhere. I've never seen it.
It's been acted out, though, multiple times. And they even have a playbill in the back of the...
yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, right here.
That's interesting.
But...
what about you, Josh?
I give it a 4.5, which I think that it is a powerful piece. I think it's a memorable piece.
I'll give it that too.
I think it's
but still going to 3.
greatly important. I think that the reason that I bump it down is because I don't find it it's not necessarily factual. I think they do the changes to me are a bit of a pet peeve, but I still think that it gets its message across, and it really leaves me thinking.
If this was the over-under book tag, or whatever that was, Josh, was it a Would You Rather? It may have been a Would You Rather. Well, there was a section that you'd say, oh, what are books that are overrated? To me, The Crucible is overrated.
I don't know if I wouldn't say it's underrated, but I definitely wouldn't say it's overrated.
Yeah.
And don't forget Giles Corey, who we didn't mention in the whole episode.
Oh yeah.
He's probably the most decent guy next to John Proctor, who just wants to live and let live.
Yeah.
And when he won't make the accusations and he gets pressed,
more stones,
more weight.
More weight.
Yeah.
Alrighty. If you're interested, here is a copy of The Crucible. I thank you for tuning in to this video. I hope join us next time. And for now, keep reading.